questioning.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with my colleagues across the aisle that it is essential for policymakers to take seriously how energy policies are going to affect the energy prices that are faced by everyday Americans. But unfortunately, the Energy Poverty Prevention and Accountability Act takes a very narrow view of which energy policies and which impacts we should consider. Among other things, this bill requires the Department of Interior to review energy, quote-unquote, activities to see if these activities would impose disproportionate costs on at-risk communities or increase the likelihood that at-risk communities will experience energy poverty and job losses. On its face, that seems like something we might agree with, but we should be taking a closer look. In this bill, the following activities would require review. 1, a declaration of a moratorium on the leasing of federal land for the drilling, mining, or collection of oil, gas, or coal or related activities. That would require review. The other thing that requires review is any action that prohibits or delays the issuance of new oil and gas lease sales, or the withdrawal of federal lands from forms of entry, appropriation, or disposal under the public land or mining laws. So what we're seeing here is that the drafters of this bill make it very clear which industries they are concerned about. They're requiring that these studies are exclusively for activities that would limit oil and gas production or mining, but they don't really pertain to those that wouldn't. Dr. Cha, do you believe that these narrowly focused studies would provide an accurate assessment of a community's risk of energy insecurity or poverty?
I do not.
I also find it interesting that individual fossil fuel or mining project sponsors can request an energy study to show, and I quote, how the project is likely to alleviate energy poverty in at-risk communities, including by creating jobs, reducing energy prices, or other relevant measures. So an individual fossil fuel or mining project can request a study to validate or boost their own project. Dr. Cha, how could these criteria and this project-by-project approach create a misleading picture of the costs and benefits of extractive projects?
Well, I think first it does do exactly as you said, Representative, which is do a project-by-project and doesn't take into account the cumulative impact of all of these projects on a community. It also only looks at the benefits. It doesn't look at any externalities that are caused, the air pollution that is caused, the poisoning to land, air, and water for those communities. And it really just paints the most positive view of the fossil fuel project and not taking into consideration also the contribution that it could have to the climate crisis, which is one of the greatest threats to vulnerable households.
So this isn't even about a cost-benefit analysis at all, correct?
It's like a benefit analysis.
It's just a benefit analysis. And so a fossil fuel company or project can come in and say, tell me all the good things that can happen by me drilling in someone's backyard, but don't talk about any of the polluting that can happen, any of the dumping that can happen, any of the cancer that can be caused in this area, any of the poisoning that can happen on local constituents. Just tell me about the good things, correct?
Exactly.
Now, in your opinion, would a project sponsor request this kind of study for their project if they thought there was any chance that the study would reflect poorly on what they're proposing?
I can't imagine.
So we've seen over and over again how these unbalanced studies, and I think at this point it's hard to even call it a study because it's not objective, it's not comprehensive, it's really not too far from propaganda at that point, how they overpromise on the benefits of extractive projects and then they underestimate or completely neglect harm to local communities, places like Cancer Alley, Asthma Alley, and so on. Dr. Cha, if you were to design a study to measure how likely a federal action was to affect energy poverty or insecurity in an at-risk community, what do you think are the most important factors to include?
I think one factor that is really missing is time. Something has much bigger burden over years than just in a few months. It doesn't look at, as you mentioned, cumulative impacts. It doesn't look at other alternatives that could be proposed, for instance, like energy efficiency or weatherization or other factors that really lead to energy poverty. It really only looks basically at what can be the best case scenario for fossil fuel use.
Great. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Mr. Graves for 5